other difficulties, familiar difficulties in Houston?
Well, in Detroit, where the public schools are really, really bad, but they've begun to allow charter schools and hopefully someday even tax credits. You have charter schools now that are appealing to students across the income spectrum. So, yeah, in a free marketplace, you will have schools that attract people for different reasons. You'll have variety. But any system that tries to achieve both quality and equality in every way will end up with neither.
I have one observation to this. Here we created a small experiment which is called the Romanian-Japanese Study Center, and of course this is kind of after school for the students, so people have to pay more money to get this kind of service. But each year we are thinking about bringing students who are, let's say, more willing to learn and gifted, so we are giving scholarships. So this is also about the school. Most of the students who are getting the best grades are not those coming from the wealthiest families. So the school also have to think about this.
Yeah. And the parents who are lining up to get their children into these charter schools, these new choice schools, you might say, they tend not to be the wealthy parents, because they already have some options that poor parents don't have. They tend to be the parents who have the least in the way of material needs and opportunity. They're the ones who are lining up and waiting to get their children in these other schools. The wealthy find a way to take care of themselves. But if you want to help the poor, choice in schooling is one way to do it. Give poor parents options, opportunities. Empower them with choice.
I think they will look after their investment in education better than the government probably.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, because the government tends to focus on the system. You know, making sure it has employment, that the system supports the system supports the politicians. The purpose of the system should be to serve the children. Yes, sir?
Do you think that the development of technology itself and the rising involvement of social networks in our lives have something to do with the bad result that students are getting today?
Well, the rise of, say, video games. Yeah, I mean, with anything new, you know, you have good things, bad things about it. I think it's probably not so good that a lot of students spend a lot of time, you know, in video games. But by the same token, in some cases they're learning some skills that way. But again, I'm not afraid of variety and choice. And I'm not afraid of people making mistakes. I just want them to learn from their mistakes. I want them to be in a situation where if they make mistakes, they bear the consequences instead of imposing their mistakes on other people. That's the kind of system we want. We'll never have a society where, you know, everything's perfect and everybody makes always the right decisions. But what you do want is a society where people are free to make decisions, bear the consequences, learn the lessons of their mistakes, and enjoy the successes of their good judgments as well. You don't want to penalize good judgment, and you don't want to reward failure. To the extent you do, you create incentives in the wrong directions.
What would you do with a system like Romania, where you have public schools that, of course, are not so good, and some of them just take a lot of students and award the best ones some grants that are not even sufficient to cover their cost of living, let's say. And you also have some private universities, and I will not name any of them, that are just printing diplomas for your studies. And the students are somehow, they want to get that diploma because the state imposes that you have a diploma. They're licensing you to have something in order to employ you, but there's a paradox. You're going either for the diploma or for the studies or for the cheap studies.
The schools or universities that do those things, how are they funded? Directly from the government or from?
We're talking about the private ones,
Or you're talking about
the private ones. There are private schools that practice this system of awarding diplomas to masses, to a lot of students, and they have low tax, but they're profitable because, given the number of students,
they're funded entirely by
students,
by the students and the tuition they pay.
Yeah.
Well, I would say it sounds as though you need an even more vibrant private sector, more choices, even not less. That some of the bad private schools need to go out of business, but they can't go out of business if there aren't lots of other private opportunities that parents can go to.
And thank God for the crisis, because now companies finally in Romania are thinking about what the graduate must know, and not about the diploma. Thank God. Finally.
So it sounds like in Romania, although you have some private sector education provision, it's kind of stunted, maybe even protected, maybe even overregulated, maybe even really not thoroughly private. How easy is it for new options to appear?
It's very hard.
Let's
That's
say
why I opted out from the system.
Let's say that some of these students that are a product of private education in Romania and bad private education, they also have some good positions in the government, and they're keeping the.
No, it's just a matter of over-regulation. I mean, you hear everything from what you have to teach in class, how many points has your curriculum must have, and so on. And it's regulated. Everything is regulated.
So you need a much more thriving, open, entrepreneurial private sector in education. If it's so heavily regulated and stunted, then yeah, you get distortions. But it's like saying, well, what if you have bad private restaurants? What's the answer to that? Ban them? And so have only government restaurants? No, then you have all restaurants are bad. What you do is you give them more competition. You make it easier for people to say, here, hey, come to my restaurant, because it's better. So no one should ever say that markets always provide, that every product that anybody provides in a free market is going to be good. No. The idea here is you allow for options to appear and consumers to choose. And so the bad ones tend, in a thriving, vibrant free market, they tend to go out of business or they improve. So it sounds to me as though you need more competition, more private provision, deregulation, more options, not less. Well, I've kept you a long time. I just want to say that this has been one of the highlights of my visit to Romania, to have such a wonderful group of young people listen so attentively and ask good questions. I hope I said something that might be helpful. And can't thank you enough for coming today. And again, I thank the rector and Professor Glavin for the invitation and the opportunity to be with you. Thank you. I look forward to it.
Points that I would like to make. The first one is that I'm very glad that we meet today here. It is our first meeting after the summer holiday. We wake up earlier and start before the academic year, before we want to advance the cause for freedom further this year than we did last year. And I promise that we'll focus our efforts in the field of education this year. And the second point is that if you want to take home with you the talent and the insights of Professor Reed, you will find that my colleague Bogdan Opreanu, his essay on the Great Depression, the great myth of the Great Depression, at a very modest price. So, thank you again.
Thank you.